So I'll start off with just saying that I'm Joseph Ryan, a seminarian for the Diocese of Syracuse. I just graduated from St. John's University in Queens, got my bachelor's in philosophy there. I lived with the other two seminarians, Andrew and Nick Clemente, at Cathedral Seminary, House of Formation. Brother Owen is on faculty there. And so tonight we're going to be presenting on our apostolate work that we did at St. Anthony's High School out in Huntington, Long Island. So just background about me, I'm from upstate New York, so living in the city was a little different for me, but my hometown's Binghamton. So I'll let the other guys introduce themselves.
Yeah, I'm Andrew Mccarroll. I'm from the Diocese of Scranton, Pennsylvania. And like Joe said, I just graduated from St. John's University and Cathedral Seminary with my bachelor's in philosophy. But I'm originally from Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. So like Joe, I'm from a small city, and New York was a big surprise to me. But I did 4 years at Cathedral Seminary in Queens. So.
Where are you headed, Andrew?
Next year I'm going to St. Mary's in Baltimore.
So you and Joe.
Yeah.
Nick?
Okay, my name is Nick Clemente. I'm with the Diocese of Brooklyn, and along with Joe and Andrew, I just finished up my bachelor's at St. John's. Next year I'll be at Dunwoody, or St. Joseph's in Dunwoody.
I'll see you there.
What's that?
I'll see you there.
Okay, sounds good.
For the benefit of people that don't know, Dunwoody is the theologate for the tri-diocesan situation. St. Joseph's is the formal name for it. Okay, so a little bit how this emerged. I guess it's at least 2 years ago. The rector of the college seminary invited me to make a presentation to the students on the importance of the importance of Catholic education in general, and B, the important place of a priest in that process. And the response was very, very positive. The first point I should mention is the vast majority of the seminarians were the products of Catholic education themselves, and which again is in line with all of the statistics that come out year after year. And then secondly, that they bore out that study that I made reference to earlier of seminarians interested and supportive, but having no background whatsoever and no preparation for working in the schools. And so as the process played itself out, thanks largely to the good offices of Brother Owen, a program was put together by which these three seminarians would have their apostolic assignment at St. Anthony's High School, which is in the Diocese of Rockville Center, Long Island. And so, brother, do you want to give some of that background lead up, and then the fellows can talk about what they did?
Sure. Thank you. Just briefly, because I'd like the seminarians to give their experience sort of unvarnished at St. Anthony's. But what happened was really through the inspiration of Father Peter, I approached Father Sears, the rector, and I said, what would you think of offering the possibility of our seminarians to work on a weekly basis for their ministry at a Catholic high school, at St. Anthony's High School? And St. Anthony's is a large Catholic high school, 2,450 students in it. It's quite successful. We're hoping that we can be as successful in the future. I think we will. But it has a very diverse program. It's a very good academic program. Its activities are renowned, and it's really a wonderful place for seminarians, I think, to work. And so when I approached the brothers in my community that administer St. Anthony's High School, they were absolutely delighted. They just could not think of anything that would be better than having the seminarians from their perspective. We have a Catholic chaplain and have always had a Catholic chaplain full-time at St. Anthony's High School. But the idea of having seminarians there to be able to interact with the students, to talk to them, to visit the classes, to become involved with retreat works and other things was an ideal relationship to as far as the school was concerned. And so Brother Joshua and many members of the teaching staff organized a program to invite Joe, Andrew, and Nicholas into the school, and it was a regular thing right up until the time of the pandemic. So they would go every Wednesday and spend a good part of the day right into the afternoon. We would also have, we made sure that we had our lunch in the cafeteria so the students could see us, and they attended every possible thing that they could become involved in, from retreat works to the chorus and everything else. And I think it was largely a successful venture. I know it was from the point of view of the school and the administrators, but I think I should turn it now over to Joseph and Andrew and Nick and allow them to tell you what their experience as seminarians in a school apostolate was like. So, gentlemen, floor is yours.
Joe, kick off.
Sure. So, like Brother said, the apostolate kind of grew out after Father Peter made his presentation at the seminary. There was a lot of talk about Catholic schools for the next couple weeks after that. And that Christmas, Brother Owen invited any of the seminarians who wanted to attend St. Anthony's Christmas concert. And about a dozen or so of us went. And St. Anthony's Christmas concert really left a huge impression on many of us with the level of talent of the kids, the size of the school, but also the Catholic nature of the concert. They were doing everything from your classic Christmas carols to the Gregorian chants related to the Christmas season, and just the general spirit of the kids and the energy of the bands and everything really left an impact on on all of us about what it was to go to a Catholic school, but especially St. Anthony's. Later in that year, myself, Brother Owen, and Andrew did a daytime visit to the school where we got to go into a few classrooms and meet with some of the teachers. And after that, Andrew and I really expressed interest in working apostolic work our senior year at St. Anthony's. And so he approached the administration and the faculty at the seminary, and they were more than welcoming to this idea. So in the fall of 2019, we were assigned, along with Nick, to work at the high school. And as Brother said, we would visit there for almost full days on Wednesdays. So, and then once we began there, we worked in a variety of different capacities with the faculty, administration, and students. Our first task at hand was introducing ourselves to the students. We attended several of the masses, but primarily the way we introduced ourselves was by visiting each of the theology classes, which was really a daunting task given the size of the school. Brother, how many sections of theology there for each grade? Almost a dozen, right?
Yeah.
More. Right. So we had a lot of ground to cover in our time there, just making introductions. So we began with the seniors, and during our visits, we started our time by giving our vocation stories, at least a brief version of them. Each of us would go through the way God brought us in our life to where we are now, just to give them a sense of the variety of different ways a man can enter the seminary. And we were a really good team for this. Andrew, having come straight out of a Catholic high school, going right into college seminary program and spending 4 years there. Myself, having gone to college for a year and discerning there, changing my whole life plan and then going into the college programming as well. And Nick, who spent some time in the workforce and then decided to come back and study for the priesthood in the seminary. So we each kind of took a different route. And in sharing our vocation stories, I think that gave the kids a depth that there are a lot of options out there, and there's a little bit more history behind each priest and each seminarian than you might think. So after we finished our vocation talks on these initial visits, we would then open the classroom to discussion and questions from the kids. And this was definitely the most rewarding part of our visits at that point. We would discuss everything from what kind of food we eat into the seminary up to why we believe in the church, or why men can be ordained, or what's the church teaching on this various social issue. So we covered a lot of ground just in those discussion sessions, and the kids were really direct. Sometimes they would try to pin us in and kind of test us with a question, but we really developed a good rapport with them, and we tried our best to give them good answers. And at that point, I think they really realized that we were kind of normal people. We weren't just in this little capsule world, and we were really able to engage them on a closer level. And some of their faculty even noted that in these question and answer sessions, they were going further in discussions than a lot of them were ever able to engage the kids when they would try to open up the room to these kind of discussions. And then after we did these initial introductions, the teachers were able to invite us back to the classroom on a later visit whenever they wanted. And on these visits, we would kind of leave it open to whatever the teacher wanted us to do. A few of the options we presented were leading Lectio Divina with the kids, where we would go over a Bible passage with them, have them pray on it for a while, and then go into a discussion about the passage, breaking them up into small groups. And these were also really fruitful. And I think all of us can say that we were impressed with the level these kids could engage in Lectio, the fact that they did take the prayer time seriously, and then they were able to offer some really good insights, and we were able to talk to them about how the gospel applied in their lives. Some other times on these return visits, we would do a lecture on a topic of interest for us. We would have to prepare ahead of time a lesson plan and maybe some handouts. And I really enjoyed the lecture I gave to a few classes on the proofs for God's existence. And then a couple of the other guys had other presentations. Some other times when we visited, we would do other facets of school life. We helped Brother Joshua DeMauro, who's the vice principal, but also the choir director, and generally he wears a lot of caps around the school, but he was more than welcoming to have us come to his choir rehearsals. And we would assist him there in kind of directing the large choral groups he has. Sometimes he has upwards of 200 kids in a practice. So we would just sing along with the kids and kind of direct the energy there. And then along with those choir rehearsals, we would sometimes go on retreat with the kids. Campus ministry at St. Anthony's does day retreats with each of the theology classes throughout the course of the year, either at the Brothers Camp that they have near Huntington, and then also at the Old Immaculate Conception Seminary at Huntington, which is now a retreat house for the Diocese of Rockville Center. We would join them for the day, pray with them, serve their liturgies. Usually they would have a holy hour or something like that, and then lead a few conversations either about the Eucharist before holy hour or other things. So we really made ourselves present to kids on these off-campus retreat days. I would say that my experience at St. Anthony's this year was really the highlight of my college seminary career. Each week I looked forward to visiting the kids at the school. And I would say that it was really rewarding to see how a seminarian like me, and then hopefully later as a priest, can make such an impact on kids' lives, even just by visiting the classroom once. And it was really in seeing the faith of these students and their enthusiasm for service and for learning that gave me hope for the future of the church. And so it reminded me really why I wanted to become a priest, and it gave me a better sense of my vocation. So I came out of the other end of this apostolic work, really seeing that there's more to the priesthood. I already knew it, but it gave me a sense that you can do a lot more than just working in a parish. You can work in the schools and many other different capacities. But the schools was really where I found my passion during this apostolate work. And so I appreciate Brother Owen for making that possible for us and the faculty at St. Anthony's. So I think I'll turn it over to Nick now to talk about some of his experiences.
Okay, sure. So I'm a product of public school myself. I went to public school from K to 12, and this apostolate was my introduction really into the world of Catholic school, Catholic education. And that's why it was really valuable to me to see the difference. I don't want to make this sound like a hard luck story, because I would describe my public school as completely average, completely middle of the road in every way. We had a handful of students go to vocational training. We had a handful of students go to Ivy League and elite schools. It was perfectly average in terms of an American high school. And yet I have this vivid memory of the boy with the locker next to me. Every morning when I was doing my combination at, say, 7 o'clock, 7:30 in the morning, he would come in and just reek of marijuana smoke. And that early in the morning, it would kind of turn my stomach. And so even though this was a typical public school, there were still disruptions in the classroom. There were still incidents when maybe the police had to come and search everyone's locker. There's still lots of things which contributed to it, let's say, an unhealthy atmosphere. And it was really interesting seeing the difference in St. Anthony's. When we started the apostolate, what Brother Owen told me about the school is that these are happy kids. This is just a good place for these teenagers to be. And when I got there, I really got to experience that firsthand. Sometimes in class they would be a little sleepy. Sometimes they would joke around, but there was never any major behavioral problems that I encountered. I remember one story about some girl who had problems in public school with bullying, but she came to St. Anthony's and she sort of found a niche. And at that time in a young person's life, it's really important to have an atmosphere like that, which is, of course, not just a coincidence. That's something that's fostered by the Catholic program itself. You saw this in the commitment of the teachers, especially, I thought, because St. Anthony's has a sort of an unwritten policy of hiring former students as teachers, and it sort of fostered this family atmosphere where, again, even though the teachers I had in public school were good people doing their best and making a lot of sacrifices for the sake of their students, it was not quite the same level of commitment that I saw amongst the teachers at St. Anthony's. You also saw the presence of the church in terms of the constant witness of the brothers who worked there, who walked the halls, who taught some classes, the weekly visits from the chaplain. There were public masses during the holidays in the auditorium. There was a beautiful chapel where they would sometimes have holy hour adoration, and they would often start classes with prayers too. And this also helped to foster a welcoming environment, a Christian environment. I'm aware of the realities of catechizing teenagers in the modern world. It's not going to be 100% success rate. It's not easy to make the rigors of Catholic life appealing to them. But what I did notice is that for any student who had even the slightest inkling to express their faith, it was just a really welcoming environment for them to do that. There was nothing for them to be ashamed of if they wanted to offer a prayer intention, if they wanted to ask us a sincere question about the Catholic faith. And even that, for young people, is really important, to have not just the witness of us, but the witness of each other, the influence of each other. In my school, for example, I was not baptized at the time, and so I knew nothing about the religious affiliation of my classmates. I'm sure that there were some faithful students around, but it was something that never even came up. Religion was something that was never discussed whatsoever. And so it just had to remain a secret. It had to remain something that was completely banished from the hallways. And in these are the years, especially with young people, when they either come to a greater understanding of their faith or where they lose it completely. And it was great to see that there's a place for them to grow into better Catholics. And it's great to see as a seminarian, as someone who could one day be promoting enrollment in a Catholic school, it's great to be familiar with why I should be doing that, to be familiar with the advantages of doing that. And then I'll turn it over to Andrew, who will speak a little bit more about our experience.
So I think that all three of us, Joseph, Nick, and I, would agree that our experience with St. Anthony's High School had just as much of an impact on us as it did on the kids, on our formation specifically. And so in my time, I went through Catholic school my entire life, graduated from a Catholic high school, and it was a good education, lots of friends. I really enjoyed my time there, but I don't think in my entire 4 years at a Catholic high school, I ever once met a seminarian or even saw a seminarian, or to be honest, really knew kind of what a seminarian was. And it wasn't until later when I got interested in vocations and started talking to my vocation director that I, found out everything. But that was something that was really lacking for me. And so when this idea of an apostolate at Catholic high school came up at my last year at Cathedral, it was something that I wasn't really sure of because I didn't know exactly what we would do. I love St. Anthony's. Like Joe said, we visited. The chorus was great. The atmosphere was good, but I thought as a seminarian, what would we really do? Would we just walk around? So in our experience of other apostolate work at the seminary, to be honest, is more towards the elderly, being at nursing homes or towards the poor at soup kitchens. So we really never have much of an experience with Catholic education or a younger environment. And so for me, the end of my sophomore year at Cathedral Seminary, most of my close friends had left formation. And so through my junior year, it kind of made an impact on me. I wasn't sure what I was doing. All the normal questions came up. But I think it was getting involved at St. Anthony's that really renewed for me a reason why I was doing this in the first place. That those initial attractions to the life of a priest, which I saw doing ministry at St. Anthony's. And so this gave me a better outlook on how both seminarians and priests can be involved in our Catholic school. Because like I said before, my experience of Catholic education, we had our chaplain who wasn't always there, and there were no seminarians, and outside the chaplain, not many priests involved. And so I wish that I had a seminarian in my Catholic high school when I was discerning to be there like I was at St. Anthony's, like Joe and Nick clearly said with our involvement. And so I really think that in the end it had an impact on us because maybe it was saying our vocation story over 100 times that made me think why I'm redoing this. But I think the kids and the atmosphere of a Catholic school and being involved and welcomed, just as Joe and Nick had said before, had really helped me to continue on in formation and to think about going to major seminary now, being accepted at St. Mary's in Baltimore. And so for me, most seminarians aren't really exposed to Catholic education for the most part. Like Father Stravinskas said before, a lot of our seminarians do come from Catholic education, but I don't think they really know how to be involved beyond their years and times at Catholic elementary and high school levels. And so in a general summary, I would think that this affected both Joe, Nick, and I in a very positive way in our formation. I don't think it made us think any less of continuing on in formation, but I think it only gave affirmation. And so now I'll hand it back to Joe.
Right. So before we wrap up, I just wanted to read a little note that I was sent by Brother Joshua, the vice principal at St. Anthony's, when we were talking in retrospect about my experience there. We were staying in touch after it got shut down, given the current circumstances. We were sad that our year there got cut short back in March. We were hoping to spend a couple more months visiting St. Anthony's. But this is what Brother Joshua had to offer regarding our presence there at St. Anthony's. St. Francis said, Preach always, but use words only when necessary. You seminarians preached every moment you were here in the school just with your presence. The sight of you walking the halls, sitting in the cafeteria, visiting the classes, singing in the chorus, or assisting at Mass. All these were visible manifestations and like sacraments, sacramentals to all of us, especially to the students. Please emphasize that the physical presence of a seminarian is like a vision and reminds the students can too seek the road of a priestly or religious vocation. So this was coming from a religious brother who has worked in education like Brother Owen for his whole career, and all the brothers at St. Anthony's are there in habit, but he wanted to particularly note the value of us seminarians being there, discussing vocations, discussing just to the kids, even faith, and the fact that young people too can live out this lifestyle. Because to be honest, a lot of the brothers are older. The faculty, there are young faculty on staff, but still they're older. And I think in our experience, Andrew and myself and Nick being younger allowed the kids to kind of engage on a closer level. And I think Andrew wanted to talk a little bit more about those successes.
Yeah, so the one of the successes that Joe just said was that we're closer in age to the students, but at the same time, we hold like a position of authority or respect, or however you want to phrase it, where the kids aren't going to be buddy-buddy with us, but they will open up easier than they would with a 60-year-old priest, And I know that from my time discerning when I was in high school, it was difficult for me to open up to my 60-some-year-old vocation director. So, like I said before, I wish I had that a younger seminarian there in my time. But I think so that's the first success. And then it also educates seminarians for the benefits of Catholic education, as we had pointed out before. And as Joe had said, the presence of us, it teaches a seminarian that presence can be just as powerful as us giving a presentation, that the kids seeing us. And we got a lot of good feedback from the faculty and the brothers saying that just us walking through the halls, or us, choosing to sit with the kids at lunch or walk around in the cafeteria and talk to the kids makes a big difference just in the overall environment of the Catholic school. And but some improvements that we had thought of and we had discussed over the time was that there could have been better communication at some points, because an example we were at a retreat and we had to give a 5-minute introduction to what Eucharistic adoration was, and so we were under the impression that it was going to be 30 minutes of silence. So we gave this wonderful talk on how it's okay to embrace silence, especially in this world that's so busy. But then we get to Eucharistic adoration, and it was more of a praise and worship Eucharistic adoration. So there was contradictions there. So we wish we had better communication at some points. And then also the school being in the diocese, excuse me, the Diocese of Rockville Center, we thought that maybe there should have been seminarians from that diocese, being that we were from all different dioceses, Syracuse, Scranton, and Brooklyn. And so we thought that would have been a better connection for these kids, because maybe later on in their lives they would meet these guys if they're future pastors.
So with that, we'll offer the room for any questions you guys might have or responses before Father Dennis makes his formal response.
Yeah, I just resonated so well to the whole thing because, as those of you who know me, I was a sophomore in college seminary at Seton Hall when I got a call one day from my pastor saying that the nun who taught fourth-year Latin had just flown the coop, and they needed a Latin teacher, and could I rearrange my university schedule to Monday, Wednesday, Friday so I could teach Latin on Tuesdays and Thursdays back at the high school that I had attended. And when I was 17 and 18, I looked like I was 12. And, and I was going back into the very school that half of the school still knew me as a former student. And the only difference between them and me was that I was in a cassock, which didn't even help all that much at that point. But it was a baptism by fire. And as I mentioned earlier, but it's the best training possible for a priest as far as I'm concerned. My famous mantra, if you can teach hormone-raging teenagers, you can do anything else for the rest of your life. And that's true. And the point that both Joe and Andrew made about kids seeing someone very, very close to their age is a tremendous vocation pitch. It's not something that's, it happens when you're 60 years old or anything else. No, this is someone who's 21, 22 years old. I'm 17 or 18. I can understand this makes sense. And they know that you guys made this commitment after high school. It puts it automatically into their heads that this is a viable option, right? So there's that in their favor, but also what you get back in return. So I just think it was a wonderful project. And St. Anthony's, of course, is a marvelous school. You mentioned Brother Joshua and his music program. It's literally world famous. He has 200 kids in a Gregorian schola that he takes around Europe in the summer. I guess they didn't do it this year, but it's a phenomenal program, huh?
They actually did, Father, just before the pandemic.
Oh, no.
They're in Spain.
Oh, good. Yeah. So, Father Dennis, you want to weigh in?
Is this volume good? Can you hear me?
It's perfect.
Wonderful, Father Dennis.
Great. Well, thank you, Father Stravinskas, and thank you, Brother Owen, for the opportunity to be a part of your program tonight. And thank you, Joseph, and thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Nick, for what you have shared with everybody. My own background, as Father mentioned, was that I was both a De La Salle brother, a layman, and a priest working in schools. And I have seen many different perspectives on how Catholic schools can work, and have been principal of 2 different Catholic high schools and taught 45 years. So I see it. But when it comes to having seminarians in schools, especially high schools, I think there's 4 important points that emerge in the interaction between the seminarians and the students. And they come down basically to saying this: your youthfulness is a natural conduit for evangelization. And it is a credibility sign to young people that is very, very powerful, very powerful. They see older people like myself and they say, well, that's Grandpa and he made his decisions and that's what he's here for. And we appreciate that. But when they see you, who are close in age to themselves, they see something very, very different. They do not see me. They see themselves in you. And your youthfulness as a path of evangelization cannot be overestimated, in my view. It's very important that you know and that school officials know that when young people preach the gospel, whether it's by example or the way you relate to others or how you are in the classroom or simply by Mother Teresa's ordinary daily gospel, she called it giving somebody a smile. The way in which the word is preached by your behavior that way is sensational. It's absolutely wonderful. I've broken that down many times into 4 points that I have thought young evangelizers like yourselves do, and you do it almost spontaneously, simply by the goodness that is obvious in all three of you. The first is that whether you realize it or not, your youthfulness is a source of fascination for other young people, and it's a first step in identifying with you. Identifying with the evangelizer is a very important matter when it comes to understanding the gospel. If I cannot know the language that's being preached, I don't understand the preacher, I don't understand the message, it's never going to work. You have, as young people, a natural, open style of evangelization that's already winning and successful just by your being there as young people. It's important to know that's a gift from God and to use it really well. But it opens doors in nature which make the transmission of grace and the hearing of the gospel very easy for young people like yourself. The second is, as young people, when you say something, when you do something, when a seminarian is there, there's a kind of standard of credibility between youth that's very different than when an adult says it. For me, as a 16-year-old, to meet a 22-year-old who had really decided that Christ could be the center of his life was transformative to me. It meant somebody else had struggled with this and had come to the kind of decision I was hoping to make as a 16-year-old, but maybe couldn't make easily. You give young people models of what is believable, and by your action and your generosity, you make belief attractive. You make belief within reach of young people. And when you say Jesus Christ is the center of your life and he is dead and risen for you, suddenly the barriers to belief fall down with a lot of young people. And they say, wow, these guys have something. I want that too. And I can believe in that because I see myself in them. They too are young. They too went to school as I did. They too are Americans. So the second is credibility. The third is how much your own very talented persons, your own personality, your own presentation of yourself, invites the trust of other young people. You know, trust is the coin of the realm when it comes to evangelization. I look at the examples of people who preach, and if their moral lives are no good, I don't trust them, and I don't trust their message either. If I'm a high school student and I meet three outstanding young men like you, and I look at the way you behave toward me, how you treat people, I'm going to trust you, and I'm going to trust your message. And that's a huge gift, a huge, huge gift. I'm convinced that lots and lots of the church's evangelization across the ages had more to do with the trust generated personally between the missionary and the people that he or she was sent to than it did with anything else almost. If I am somebody who is trustworthy, deeply human, attractive, wonderful, graced, warm, people are going to come to the gospel. Every one of the three of you have that. You have it. Whatever it is, you've got it in spades. And I can see how students would be crazy about you by the end of a school year. Too bad COVID-19 interrupted the best evangelization at St. Anthony's. Now, you can pick it up next year. But that ability to trust you opens a huge door in an adolescent a really, really important door that makes the graces of the gospel come together. Then lastly, I think that your youthfulness, having opened that door of trust, is also an invitation to them to share with you and you to share with them. There's nothing like being able to talk to somebody that you know for sure understands what you're feeling. This guy gets it. He's still young enough to understand why I'm having the problems I'm having. He's young enough to remember what high school was about. He's young enough to still sort through the issues of sex and booze and drugs and friends and temptation and college choice and parental conflict, that whole range of growing up issues. You still know what that is. And the invitation that you give by your caring, trustworthy, youthful, and wonderful presence to share that with them and let them share it with you. Wow. The openness of the gospel suddenly now isn't just in hearing, but that gospel becomes living conversation between all of you and the young kids. I think that's fabulous. So those are the four things I see. One last thing. Here in seminary, we often concentrate on teaching seminarians about the effects of the sacraments. And the effects we concentrate on are the effects of those who receive the sacraments. So, what is the effect of having sins forgiven in the confessional? What's the effect of participating in the Eucharist and receiving communion? What's the effect of being anointed at baptism and confirmation, when I'm ill, and so forth? We concentrate on the recipient's experience. What I would like to point out is something, I think it was Andrew, I'm not sure, is that there's a second effect here, and that's on the celebrant of the sacraments too. There's a huge effect on a priest when the priest preaches really well. It isn't just that the folks in front of him pay attention and stop traveling to the planet Zeldar after the first boring 60 seconds of a bad homily. It's not just that. It's that the priest is set on fire with a connection with God's word, and the priest can feel that fire burning in himself. The effect of a good homily isn't just on those who hear it, it's on the one who preached it as well. For you to go into Catholic schools as evangelists brings with it for you tremendous second effects on you as young evangelizers. Think of the graces that you experienced because you allowed young people to approach you and ask even personal questions. Think of the transformation, your exchanges with students and faculty, the transformation you went through by being challenged to answer things that you had not thought about before, to get stronger in your faith, to broaden out your hope, to deepen your love for the church and the diverse people in it. Great. The effects on you of the time you spent evangelizing are things that will stay with you and become one more solid platform on which the grace of priesthood will eventually be built. So I say, well done. Thank you for doing it. Do it again.
Thank you, Father. Wonderful, wonderful.
How do you like that for a retreat conference?
Thank you. Bravo, bravo.
Good, wonderful. Anybody else with either questions or comments for the seminarians?
I'd like to offer a comment. Basically, first of all, guys, very good. I was thrilled to hear that. You know, when I was ordained 34 years ago, And Father McManus, I came from Mount St. Mary's Seminary. You look like you're in McSweeney Hall from what I could see. But when I was ordained 34 years ago, one of the first things was that my pastor said to me, "You're going to work with the youth." And I panicked. What? High school kids? So you've got a good head start. That's going to be a very good start for you. But, you know, Father McManus, you're talking about the effects of the sacraments and the effects of what they're doing on them. And that's a wonderful thing. And I just want to offer this thought. One of the things I've found working with schools is what a joy it is when you see a difference in somebody, when you see a young person really coming around. But one of the things that I've learned is also to entrust to God those times when it doesn't happen. I read a newspaper article one Saturday morning. Probably I was about 10 years a priest at that point. And in it, I saw the name of one of my former students from my first parish who was justifying living with or not living with, but giving birth to the child of what was a long involved story. And I thought to myself, well, we didn't get through to her. But then I said to myself, well, who knows? We may have planted a seed in there, and maybe something that I may have said, I'll never know about. God doesn't want me to get proud. She may never know about it. She may never say, oh, that priest who, I had a beard in those days, that bearded priest, maybe something where she's just a little less hesitant when she realizes her life isn't going where she wants, and she says, I have to do something. She may be just a little less hesitant to go up and ring the doorbell of a rectory. Be thankful, guys, for when you see the students who respond joyfully and who respond faithfully. And when you see the fruits of your work, that's a gift from God. Be thankful for that. But also, if you see somebody who says, to quote Father Stravinskas, I don't want to be no saint. If you find somebody who doesn't, unlike Father Peter's example, turn around, just know that God is planting a seed through what you do that may blossom in a way you'll never know, and it may be 20, 30 years down the road. So you're doing an excellent thing, and I kind of wish that I'd had a similar experience, although I'm thankful for the experiences that I did get at Mount St. Mary's and at St. Paul's Seminary in Pittsburgh before that. So just congratulations, guys. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Two other observations. One, as many of you know, I've worn 1,000 different hats in my years as a priest and have been very happy in everything I've done. But I still say the happiest days of my life were the years I taught high school. I thought they were extremely formative for me. And as I mentioned at the beginning of our conference this afternoon with that meditation of Cardinal Newman, you never know what you are accomplishing at any particular moment, which then leads to the second point. Last week, I guess, one of our readings, one of the Gospels was that famous parable of the sower and the seed, huh? And you know, we tend to look at that and say, oh yeah, well, you know, it was a lot of screw ups along the way there. But what's our Lord teaching us in that? Those of us in academia, we generally set as a standard 65 or 70 as a passing grade. But what does Jesus say the success rate is for a sower of the seed? It's 25%. Right? If you're successful 25% of the time, Jesus says you've been a success. And I think at times, we priests in particular are too hard on ourselves. Or you'll hear someone say, well, that kid went to 12 years at Catholic school and look, you know, he's a drug addict now. Well, if every kid who went to a Catholic school was a major gospel success, we'd have to wonder if we're involved in evangelization or brainwashing. right? So the gift is presented, or as John Paul was fond of saying, the faith is proposed, it's not imposed. But, and again, as Father Dennis said, this is part of that whole process of your presence there in itself is an invitation to believe. I just wish that many more seminaries and dioceses would get back into this business. I was told that a couple of weeks ago on Cardinal Dolan's radio show, he had a couple of seminarians, and he was asking them about their apostolic assignments. And they mentioned, the nursing home and the soup kitchen and all that. And the cardinal said, well, do any of you guys teach in schools? And they said, no, that doesn't seem to be done anymore. And he said, well, really? He said, that's too bad. He said, because when I was a seminarian, I taught high school, and it was the most important apostolate I ever did. And he said, and it prepared me to teach as a priest, and it prepared me to know how to deal with young people and also with parents. Huh? So let's just hope that this is the first shot across the bow for this kind of thing again. Father Dennis, you look like you were going to say something. Oh, no. Such silence. Anybody else?
Just to mention, Father Peter, St. Anthony's High School most definitely want to continue this program, God willing, and for many years to come in the seminary if we can. So,
I should also mention the three largest high schools in the Diocese of Rockville Center: St. Anthony's, which is co-ed; Kellenberg, which is co-ed and run by the Marianist brothers; and Chaminade, the flagship of all boys' high schools, run by the Marianists. Those three high schools have consistently produced all of the priests for the Diocese of Rockville Center for the past 10 years. Which also proves if we do it right, it works. It really, really does. And it's not simply that because a school produces priests, it's a proof that it's a good school. That's true. But if it's producing priests, particularly in this era, it automatically means it's producing effective lay apostles up the line as well. Because if you can go so far as to produce a priest out of that school, that says tons about what's going on for the average young person who is being given the witness of the faith and the challenge of the faith. So, and this is what we're all about. Joe, did you have another?
Just to mention something about the lay apostolate that we found out about while we were working at St. Anthony's, which was really impressive, is part of their theology curriculum. There's an advanced program the kids can go into, I think called the Colby Society, brother?
Correct.
And it gets them more involved in deeper theology classes and service organizations. But at the end of it, they actually receive, I think it's a certificate of pastoral care from the Diocese of Rockville Center by the time they're graduating high school. So there's probably 20 or 30 kids involved in this program throughout the school. And by the time they're leaving, before they go to college, they were already certified by the diocese to assist in other lay ministries as they go forward in their life. And that was a really interesting idea that we first encountered at St. Anthony's.
Yeah, I know a girl who went through that, and then when she went to college, her very first day volunteered to be part of the retreat team at the campus ministry program in her university. Right,
exactly. So I think that goes to show that there's a lot of good priestly vocations coming out of these schools, but even more so of just solid lay people who want to be involved in the church as they go forward.
And Nick, you made the point, which I think is also very important. What's one of the more important things about a Catholic high school is that kids can feel comfortable expressing their faith. It's not something that I have to whisper about or keep hidden as though it's the communist regime or something of that nature. That, as a matter of fact, faith is a normal aspect of life here. It's also what I used to stress to my teachers in the high schools that I ran was we also can create a vocation culture in a school so that a kid is not embarrassed to suggest publicly that he's interested in becoming a priest as a sophomore in high school. Certainly, we wouldn't say that a kid who said as a sophomore he wanted to be a lawyer or a doctor, we wouldn't say, oh, shh, keep quiet, right? No, this is something, yeah, this is who I am, and I'm happy to share that, and I hope I get the support that I need from it as well. So, All right. Anything else before we hit the sack? Well, thank you very much. We've had, yeah. We'll see you all 9:30 tomorrow morning, is it?
Yep.
So, all right. Sister Elizabeth, you look like you want to say something? Or you just want to go to sleep? All right. All right. Good night, all. God bless you. Sleep well.
Joseph, and thank you so much. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Ciao,
Good night.
ciao.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, Father.
Oh, okay.
Bye-bye.